Are you gonna be able to bring that, you gonna be able to bring that directory out? One set of one.
I can look at
Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there is another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly, impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars of the reality of Black Americans. It is time to tell the story.
Hello, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, this is going into my third year of doing this show. And I've had people ask me, why do I do this show? I do this show because I believe that we, as a people, need to tell our own story. I believe that we should also have an opportunity to bring people on so that they can tell their story or their journey with the idea that maybe it might spark something, enthusiasm, or maybe you say, I can do this. Because a lot of times we look at things that we are familiar with. So I think it's very important that we showcase who we are. Because too often all we see is in the newspaper, there's something negative about us. And we got so many wonderful, positive things that's going on. And so I made a decision 2 years ago that I was going to do my own show, Did You Know? And it had two components. One of the components was I was going to have my own commentary to what I thought that we need to address. And then two, bring somebody on to talk about things that what they're doing. I try to have a very relaxed, go back and forth with my guests. But I'm hoping that this program, what I continue to do, will give you some insight. The whole question is to make you think. But I'm going to change it up this year. I'm going to bring some good things on. We're going to laugh. We're going to joke. And we're not always going to be serious as well. But all of you know, I always open up with this. We have to look out for our community. We have to look out for ourselves. If we keep waiting on someone to ride in to rescue us, then we're in trouble. And I really believe that. So I want to say a couple of things to you tonight that I want you to think about. One of the things is we do a lot of talking. Talk, but very little action. So we just celebrated Dr. King's birthday. So what does it mean? For some, it's a day off. For some, it's something else. It could be many things. But I'd like for you to think about Dr. King's birthday tonight. But I want to plant some seeds into your mind. For this year, I want you to think about how do we deal with racism? I want you to think about what are we going to do about economic empowerment? What are we going to do about healthcare and violence? We lose a lot of people on gun violence. It's a tragedy. We need to do something about it. We do a lot of talking, but we need to do something about violence that's just running our community rampant. Many of you out there, you can move, you can go here, you can go here. Everybody can't get up and move. So is it right? Is it fair that they have to be scared of going out of their house? I remember my father would go in the house at 6 o'clock, didn't want to sit on the porch because he was afraid. Is it fair that you're scared to go to the supermarket because some drive-by shooting may hit you accidentally? Is that fair? Is it fair to you? Is it fair to me? Human life is very important. And not only that, we need to tell everyone. Human life is very important, and we're very blessed to have human life. But maybe we should encourage people to understand what you see on TV, bow, bow, you're dead. There's much more to it than that. It affects both families. It disrupts both families. It interrupts the mother, the father, the grandfather, the uncles. So we need to take a look at that. So my whole point is I want you to think about it. The other thing I'm going to say to you is that those of you, it's time for you to decide if you're going to run for office. We've been talking about that for the last few months. So those of you who complain, maybe you should run for council. Maybe you should run for district justice. Maybe you should run for district attorney. Maybe you should run for school board. Things that you feel that you can make a difference. And I honestly believe there's so many of you out there that are so bright and you bring so much to the table. And you say all the time, nobody never asked me. Well, I'm asking you tonight, please bring something to the table and help our community out. The other thing I've never done that I'm going to start to do, I do have other projects that I work on all the time. And many of you may not be aware that I am the publisher and owner of the Central Pennsylvania Black Directory. You can see it up on the screen. I'm in my 12th year. I decided, knowing a friend of mine in Pittsburgh, Connie Portis had this Black Directory in Pittsburgh. And she talked to me and she said, why don't you do one in Harrisburg? And I was like, well, I don't know. And then there was a lady named Cynthia Muhammad in Erie that does that. There used to be many, many of them. There used to be a lot of Black directories, but unfortunately, they have gone by the wayside. So I decided to put my energy, my money, and with the help of Connie Portis, who had already had the platform, who helped me drive this directory for 12 years. And it's called the Central Pennsylvania Black Directory, and the concept is very simple. It's for people to put ads into magazine or businesses in the magazine. And I give it out free, or you can go online and look it up. So you can go online, www.centralpablackdirectory.com. You can look it up. You'll like it. So those of you, but there's older people who get upset with me because they want the hard copy. But I'm saying that for two reasons. One, you got to support the people in the directory. You got to support them. So now I'm going to be starting now on this Black economic development. We got to support one another. Not only we got to support one another, I want to bring up something. I just want you to think about it because I told you that's what this program's about. We have a lot of businesses in our community. But do we ask them to support some of our endeavors in the community? Whether it's a church, whether it's a team to support, or whether it's some kind of initiative to help the community out. Do you go to those places that you do a lot of business in and say, hey, I know that you make a livelihood here, and we're getting ready to form a flower club. These kids are getting ready to go on a trip, of course. Could you help pay for the bus? Do we ask them? Or do we just assume they don't want to support us and then we get mad and say they don't care about the community? We need to talk to them up front and we need to hold them accountable. So my new thing is not only hold them accountable, but hold politicians accountable, business owners as well. In order for me to continue to do the kinds of things I do, I decided that I would pick a business that I would pick out that I wanted to share with you. So I hope all of you who did not even know that I had a directory, www Central PA Black Directory, please feel free to go in. It's electronically. Also, I have another email newsletter that I've just started, and you can see it as well there, and it's free. You just subscribe to it, and every month the concept is to get somebody to host it, but I want to be able to put on promotions, new businesses that we don't usually have the opportunity to do, because I don't know how we can do it. Because a lot of business open, but you don't know anything about it. And one of the people that we have a lot of sponsors, not a lot, but one of the things I thought I would bring up tonight is that all of you have watched Drumline, HB Schools. And at the Appel Center for the Performing Arts, that's in York, on February 15th, that's a Wednesday at 7:30, they got Drumline. They advertised, and one of the reasons they advertised was because they thought that I can connect to people who'd want to see Drumline. So I hope you take this opportunity to tell your friends and call and get some information on Drumline, because two things always happens, especially in the Black community. Two things. We have everything on the same day. We don't have nothing all week long, all month long, all year long, but whatever day, there's 5 things going on. The second thing is, I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it. And that's why a lot of times we don't have things, because we don't support it. Sometimes we don't support it because we don't know about it. And if you want entertainment, you want nice restaurants, you want things to come to you, you got to support it. So I just wanted to end with that. Yes. www Central PA Black Directory. And then you can go in, and I have now a newsletter. A newsletter that's free called the Black Connections. Why am I doing this? Because I want us to have every opportunity we can for information, because information controls things. Just like I've always told you, if you don't know your history, I don't know how you're going to go to the next level. And if we know our history and we talk about a history, then we can tell everybody we're great, smart people, and maybe some kind of way, some of these young people out here who walk around saying, I'm not nothing, realize they are something. And I'm going to leave with this before I bring my guest on. We got to tell young people that we love them, we care for them, and we got to tell them they're smart. Let's stop making it negative. Everything is negative. And I've decided this year on this podcast, I'm not going to make everything gloom and doom. I'm going to try to make it positive. So maybe if I make it positive, you make it positive, then we'll get a positive result. Well, what have I got tonight? Well, I got a guest on tonight that I'm going to bring on, and her name is Jacqueline Smith Bennett. She's the owner of Great Celebrations, ceremony specialist, and she's based out of Camp Hill. She specializes in rite of passage ceremonies and specializes in weddings. And she does a whole lot of things, but I've known her a long time. So Jacqueline, I want you to tell people your journey and what you really do. You got it.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me on the show. So delighted to be here and get a chance to talk about things that are important to me and something that I really, really love, which is celebrancy work. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But my journey, I guess, where I would start is to say what I do now, I probably come by pretty naturally. My father was a small business owner. He owned a barber shop. And my mom, she was a factory worker. I'm the oldest of 3 children. And so that means that I learned how to take care of people pretty early in my life. And it's something that I really enjoy and love to do to this day. So fast forward, today, I'm the owner of Great Celebrations, and I'm a life cycle and wedding celebrant. The business actually is an encore career for me. It got its origins whenever I was working for the Pennsylvania Commission for Women. I was a deputy back in those days, and that's when I first met you, Richard. And as is the case with appointed positions like I had, those positions often are not renewed. And with that as a concern, Great Celebrations was born. So a little bit about how that happened for me. I was really my first client. What happened was I was planning my own wedding and had hired a wedding consultant to do the work for me. Well, I think the term today is ghosting. She ghosted me. And I found myself 8 weeks out from the ceremony with nothing having been done. So I swung into high gear. I planned my own ceremony from top to bottom, and it was everything I could have wanted. It was magnificent. And so that's how Great Celebrations came to be. But that experience taught me something. It helped me to realize that although I had been doing ceremonies of all sorts in my professional career, it helped me realize, for other people, it helped me realize that I could do this for myself. And it also inspired me to open a business for myself. So there you have it, my early journey.
Well, let me just ask you this. I understand how you got into the business. You got into the business really because you were forced to get into the business based on that you were 8 weeks out. But what gave you in your heart that you could believe that you would be successful in attempting to go on that journey? Now, is it because that your father was an entrepreneur? Was it because that your mom had worked in a factory, so you had certain kind of work ethic? So what really spins you?
Well, I don't know that I ever thought I would knew that I'd be successful. I'll put it to you this way. I knew I wanted to be a business owner. This wasn't the first time that I had a vision to own a business. Kind of going back a little bit, whenever I graduated high school, my first vocation was cosmetology. Dad's a barber. I'm a daddy's girl. What can I say? So I went to beauty school and got my training in Baltimore, Maryland. The city life just wasn't for me. And so I came back to my hometown of Altoona and started doing hair there. And even then, I had this notion of I wanted to have my own shop. I thought at one point my father and I would have a salon together, a shop together. But, Daddy really struggled with that business and he wanted me to have something more. So he, quite honestly, was not really encouraging of me having my own business. But I remember the name of the business was going to be All Nations. And that was going to be a salon where women of all cultural backgrounds and ethnicities could come and get their hair done. So anyway, that did not happen. Many years went on, and I had this notion of wanting to have a coffee shop. And so I can't tell you exactly the year when it was, but anyway, in that endeavor, I went to the Small Business Administration, and they have a group of senior executive retired business people that I guess they give counsel to aspiring entrepreneurs. So anyway, went there, talked about my vision for the coffee shop. It was going to be called Jack's Beanstalk. And unfortunately, I was met with discouragement there. They didn't think that there was enough there for it to be a viable business. So fortunately for me, by that time, I had professional skills and I was always employed. So I had options. And so when Great Celebrations came to be, yes, it was because there was a need to survive. And that was something that was a concern. But quite honestly, at the time that I really got into Great Celebrations, I left a very good paying position just to see what I would be able to do with the business on a full-time basis. So it was, let's just give this a shot and let's see what's going to happen. And that was back in 2007. So here we are. We still have the shingle on the door, still aspiring.
Okay. See, I'm a believer. I am a believer that Black entrepreneurship is going to be the way to help the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe, this is my only personal belief, that if we keep waiting on everybody else to come and pull us through, because what happens is if we depend on Black entrepreneurship, Black businesses, then we can hire some young people. I get upset sometimes because I think that we need to do a better job. And that's why I have the kind of programs I have on, is somebody like you could say, I had a vision. You had a vision, but you took the leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody can't take the leap of faith, but you were willing to do it. And that's why I have people like you on the program, that somebody out there that may be on the fence and they hear you and they see you and they say, you know what, I can take the leap of faith. Now, in saying all that, you took the leap of faith, but you had another job. Now, in saying that, I do understand, because even though a new governor was sworn in today, we all know that politics is very different. And when in different administrations, they go different ways. And a lot of people don't understand those jobs could be very stressful as well. I'm going to go back to your celebration, but before then, I want to talk about politics real quickly with you, because that's how I really know you, is from politics, way, way back. I believe you're on the Democratic State Committee. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I'm currently serving as the secretary for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I want you to articulate that. Now, you stepped up to the plate. Don't you, or do you feel it's important for us as African Americans, other people listen to this, but it could be anybody. So I'm not, but this is my program, but it could be anybody. What do you feel why we should get involved in politics? That's number one, why we should get involved in politics. And then after you answer that, then I'm going to play devil's advocate to why some people say we shouldn't be in politics, okay? So you got it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we'd be involved in politics.
Well, I learned from a very early age that politics affects every aspect of our lives. We elect people and send them to Washington or here to Harrisburg or wherever your state capital is, to make decisions about how we are going to live our lives, to make decisions about how our children are going to be educated, to make decisions about employment, to make decisions about healthcare, these are all vital issues that, quite frankly, we don't have the luxury of sitting back and being oblivious to. So I heard someone say, a long time ago that, being involved at the local level is crucial. So you don't have to set your sights at the state level or the national level. You set your sights right in your own front yard or your own backyard. Starting off running for being if you're going to be involved in your political party, help people to get out the vote, become a precinct worker. If you have other talents or drive or interest, run for local office, serve on your school board, run for your county, your township commissioner. These are your neighbors. These are your children's friends that you have an idea of what's going on. So that's why I think it's important.
And saying all that, I agree with you. Would you express to my audience out there the real importance of being involved in voting? And the reason I say that is because, as we know, in Pennsylvania, because other people do listen to my podcast, in Pennsylvania, there was a new governor today that was sworn in. And as I listened to the new governor, as he continued to give his inaugural speech, he talked about what motivated him and where he plans to do things. And the things he kept saying, he named different people that made a difference because they spoke up. And my thing is, a lot of times we don't speak up. We mumble to ourselves or we mumble to our friends, but we don't speak up. And I'm a believer now that if we don't speak up and we don't ask for certain kinds of things, we're going to get left out. Because one of my big things that bother me is that every election, I always hear this cry out, oh, it's very important that we get the minority vote. And I understand that. They want to come to our churches. They want to come to all our things. No problem with that. But when the real agenda comes out, where are we at? What do we get out of it? And I'm saying the only way that we can show strength is saying we have to hold them accountable. And we have not done that. We've not done a good job of that. Now, do you agree with that or do you disagree?
I agree with that, but I would add to that, no man is an island. We have to operate, it's my belief, no man is an island. You can't do things alone. You need to have coalitions. You have to have people who agree with you, and ideally people who look like you who agree with you.
Okay.
So my view is, take your point. We have a new administration coming in. There will be lots of opportunities for input to policy. There will be lots of opportunities for employment. And so we need to have organizations who have a voice loud enough, it's my opinion, who have a voice loud enough to be heard at those levels so that we do have an opportunity to come to the table. My situation, when I started in state government, it wasn't because I went knocking at the door, and said, let me in. It was because I was active in my community. I was active with unions. I knew people who were heads of large organizations. And when there was a need for a position, then they were able to say, well, would you consider Jacqueline Smith? I was Jacqueline Smith then, and my name would get put on a list. But that was because there were people at the door, at the table, who had a large enough constituency base and large enough voice to be heard and get those names moved forward. And I think that's what needs to happen for us. You know, I hear it all the time too. You know, the elections come and they go, and we somehow, as African Americans, as Black people, feel like we've been left behind, or they've forgotten us. But I think, you know, as you say, the onus is on us, you know, and I'm no different than anyone else. I can get, you know, lost in my own world and doing my own thing, and don't always, you know, interact as much as I could or should with organizations that are positioned to make a difference. Does that answer your question?
Sure, it answers my question. I'm going to go back to what I really brought you on for, but because I know you politically, but I have to say this comment before I go back. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be real. Look at City Hall. Look at the police department. Look at the fire department. Look at the school district. Does it represent your community and your vested interests? Something that the governor said today, he says, I want my cabinet to look like Pennsylvania. And I applaud him on that. So then that's fine. So then what we need to do is start looking at our communities and say, we want our communities to look like the demographics of the community. And I will leave it there, because I think that's very important. I've seen too often, and I'm not naive, we get people in positions and we want them to correct everything for all the years it didn't happen. And that's not fair to them, because they can't change everything. But they could help change things, but we got to support them. You know, we talk about people being, if you want to be a police person, if you got a problem, be a police person, be a fire person. If you got a problem with the education system, well, then become a school teacher. Be these things. But we got to step up to the plate, and we got to step up to the plate correctly. Qualify, do the kinds of things that we need to do so that they don't have an excuse. And I'm going to leave it at that, because that's my thing. Politics is big time to me. Everybody knows me, knows that. And I walk through, you know, and I'm gonna end on this. You know, I've walked through the Capitol because I was there. Ain't a whole lot of us there. I look at state government. I look to the House, the Senate. I look all around. Ain't a whole lot of us. Now, some reasons is because we haven't applied for the positions. So I'm saying that we have to be held accountable as well. So I'm hoping out there, artists, you do your due diligence to get those positions. Get qualified to get those positions. Fill out those applications for those positions. And stop walking around saying, oh man, they didn't give me the job. Well, you didn't apply for the job. So I'm going to leave it at that. Now, we're going back to what we really have you on the air for. So now I want you to tell us about great celebrations.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for, you know, allowing me to come on and talk about that, and also allowing me to share a little bit about my personal other personas.
Well, I have to do that because I knew that you're in politics, and that would be terrible for me not to ask you about it.
I appreciate that. Well, okay. So great celebrations. We are a personal service business that specializes in rite of passage ceremonies. An easy way to think about me and rite of passages would be that I do ceremonies from the womb to the tomb. So what I mean by that is, for instance, parents of a newborn, I will do a baby naming. Someone who's moved into a new residence, I will do a house blessing. Here's a story. There was a couple who came to me. Dad was of Jewish background, mom was of Catholic background. And it was important to them that they have a baby naming ceremony. Now, grandparents on dad's side, they were adamant that this ceremony not be a baptism. So they were concerned that their son and daughter-in-law were coming to a minister to have this done and not someone within their faith tradition. So the couple and I, aware of what these concerns were, we got together, and this is what celebrants do. I co-create with the client a ceremony that meets their needs. And so aware that the baptism element would be very sensitive and unacceptable, actually, we put together a ceremony where I said at the very beginning that this is a blessing to honor a new life that has just begun. And then we held space for the parents to talk about the child's name and how they came to that name and what their hopes and promises and dreams would be for this child. And then we wrapped it up with me doing a blessing of the child with rose water. I touched the child's feet, the child's hands, the child's heart with the rose water, and everybody was very pleased with that. And the baby was very cooperative as well. So that's one example of a rite of passage. Two people moving from the state of being husband and wife, a couple, into being parents. That's a rite of passage. So another type of ceremony I would use as an example would be weddings. Weddings are a rite of passage. Now, this particular example, I'm just giving it because I love it. But this was a couple who came to me 10 years after they had been married. So they were celebrating their 10th anniversary. They both had health issues. And so being fit and maintaining their health was very important to them. And they planned on having the ceremony at a gym. So it was like, well, what can we do with this? So in talking with them about, their life thus far, and there was a couple who had, really struggled in their marriage up to that point because of the health issues that they had. One of the partners had MS, and it was just very hard on the relationship. But anyway, I put together a ceremony where and let me just backdrop it for a moment. Celebrants put together ceremonies using elements, symbols, and rituals that have meaning to the client. So in this instance, I put together a ceremony where I used something like a headband, hot water bottle, not a hot water, but a water bottle, medicine ball, hand weights. And what I did was I drew a correlation between those elements and what it takes to have a strong, healthy marriage. And then we ritualistically lit candles at each one of those to emphasize the bond of unity.
Well, I'm listening to you. So could you give my audience a little bit more perspective on this? Because basically, and I'm very naive about this, when we think of those kinds of things, we just think of basically church, and we don't coordinate the whole celebration thing. So I'd like for you to elaborate on that. And how did you come up with that whole celebrant approach?
Okay. Well, let me kind of approach it this way. You're right. Sometimes people call me and they'll think that I'm a event planner or coordinator, which I have done that. But Great Celebrations focuses on the ceremony. So I look at it this way. There's an event and an event within the event. The event within the event is the ceremony, the program, the piece that the celebrant, or some people like to even think of it as an MC. But I am an ordained minister and a trained celebrant, trained life cycle celebrant, as well as a certified wedding celebrant. So the concept comes about because of the way in which celebrants are trained. Celebrants are trained to be storytellers. We are trained to look at a ceremony through the eyes of the client. So, for instance, talking about weddings specifically, many couples don't realize that they can have a say in what actually happens in their ceremony, because if you're like I am, and before I became a celebrant, all I knew was what I knew in terms of going, you know, and I'm a person of faith. I was raised in the faith tradition. My credentials are non-denominational, not denominational, but I personally am a person of faith.
Mhm.
So, you know, before entering into this career, all I knew relative to weddings was to go to clergy. Well, where I'm different from what clergy would do is, as a non-denominational minister, I'm free to create a ceremony that has both sacred elements or none at all, if the client so wishes. I've had clients come to me who are not of faith, but they want something that's both very spiritual, very poetic, but they don't want a mention of any deity. As a non-denominational minister, I am free to do that. If you go, you know, to denominational church, a Jewish church rabbi, or even an elected official, elected officials officiate ceremonies as well. You know, they're pretty much locked into what they're going to be able to offer you. And what I bring is just the opposite. You know, the world is yours when it comes to a ceremony. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you bring creativity. Okay, you bring creativity. Now, apparently you do weddings. Apparently you do things when someone is born. Do you also do things when it comes to death?
I do. I like to emphasize being a wedding celebrant because that's where my heart and my passion is. I love being in love with love, and I love being with people who are happy.
Sure.
But I'm also trained to do celebrations of life, and I do funerals, and I do memorial services. I prefer the memorial services because it's easier to celebrate a life, particularly a life that's been well lived. So yes.
Could you explain both? Explain both to my audience, please, and how you perceive both.
What, a funeral and a memorial service?
How you see funerals and the way you look at that, and how you look at memorials. Where's both of them?
Well, the funeral service, there is a body physically there, and it just has a different ambiance to it than whenever you do a memorial service and the body is not there. The memorial service is more conducive to group participation. It's in my mind, it's a way that we can bring more people to the celebration to honor the life that is no longer. And so it's I think it's easier on those people who are participating and joyful. Along with that, I will mention that I do something called a death cafe, which is a conversation. It's a group conversation that people will sit and talk about the finiteness of life. You know, talking about death is kind of taboo. It's not something that people, want to sit around and talk about. But doing a death cafe opens up a channel of communication and allows people to start thinking about it in terms of, how do I live my best life, whether I'm ill and my end is imminent, or whether I'm healthy. But it gives me an opportunity to think about, what do I think about the end of life, and how do I want this life that I'm living now to proceed?
That's why I have people like you on the program, because I want people to get different perspectives. And, a lot of us grew up traditional. And so we only look at things from a traditional standpoint. So having you on, giving a different perspective. And that's why I wanted to talk to you in terms of you like you said, memorials is much more, would you say, much more celebrated, much more exciting, not exciting, but much more laid back, opposed to a funeral just being death.
I think it's a lot more, you have an opportunity for a lot more interactiveness.
Okay.
You have an opportunity to have people really reflect about how they want to, how and what they want to say. A model I really like to use when I do memorials, and this is kind of like the business side of things, but a model I like to use is, think about all the things a person has been, and then speak to what that is. So for instance, I am Jacqueline, the business owner, Jacqueline, the mother, Jacqueline, the politician, Jacqueline, the church council leader. So should something happen and there's a memorial service created for me, it's a lot easier for people to say, I'm going to stand up and talk about Jacqueline, the politician. I'm going to talk about Jacqueline, the church leader. So I think it's a richer, rounder, fuller way to celebrate a life. And that's what we're talking about in a memorial, a celebration. Not so much the ending, but the celebration of what a person, everything that they effused to be and were and are, because I believe life goes on and the spirit continues on. And so, that is raised for people and made live. It just is breathing.
Very interesting that you said that, because I was trying to balance the two, and I wanted the audience to look at it, because I'm pretty sure the bulk of us are traditionalists, and we look at things from a very traditionalist, what we grew up with and what we were very comfortable with. And now when you see all of these other things that come out, where before, you're putting a person in the ground, now whether you go with cremation, all those things. So there's so many new things out there that we don't know about. And that's why I believe in having people on like you. So you've told some stories. Let me ask you a couple of things. What is the qualifications to do what you do? That's number one. And then two, are there a lot of people like you out there?
Yeah. Well, qualifications to do what I do. Well, to be a celebrant, it's as simple as finding a school and going to school. But if you want to legally marry people in the state of Pennsylvania, number one, on the client side, they've got to have a marriage license. But on the professional officiant side, you need to be an ordained minister. So I have sought ordination and become an ordained minister. And I just wanted to kind of step back for a moment because you said something just before the lead into that. This wasn't something that I entered into lightly. I thought about it long and hard because, as I said, I'm a person of faith and I was raised in the Black church. And I know when you hold yourself out as a minister, that carries a certain kind of expectation. And I didn't want anyone to misconstrue or misunderstand my intention or misunderstand about who I am. I do not pastor a denominational church. And so, I wanted people to, when I say people, I mean my family, my relatives, to not think that I was being blasphemous, that I was being disrespectful or anything. In fact, when I came into my ordination, I sat on it for a couple of years before I did anything with it. And then I finally, through a network of supportive friends and professionals, decided I was going to move forward. So I just wanted to say that. But
no, I understand. I'm glad you said it because traditionalist is what it is. And I do understand that. Okay.
Mhm.
Now you said something, go to school. Is there a school for this?
Oh, certainly. Yes. The particular institution that I went to is Universal Brotherhood Movement. And my certification is through the Celebrate Foundation and Institute. And you asked the question, are there a lot of celebrants? Well, the answer is yes and no. Are there a lot of officiants? Certainly, yes. But are there a lot of trained celebrants who do ceremonies in the vernacular or in the way that I do? There are maybe a couple of thousand nationwide. And if you check the directories of the Humanist Society, or you check the directory of Celebrant Foundation and Institute of my alma mater, you will find there are lots of celebrants, but there are not that many who are listed as ordained, and that makes the difference.
Interesting. And I'll be very honest with you. When I first discussed you coming on here, I knew I was comfortable with you with the politics part. I admit that. But I was trying to figure out, what does she do? What does that mean? And I'm glad you came on because you explained it. But the other thing that you have done tonight that I've always tried to do in this program is to get people to think about, oh, I never thought about it, because they may never have heard it. So maybe by you coming on here and saying this, it may give some people insight, and it may give some people ideas. And so let me ask you this. So if they wanted to reach you, figure out how to contact you, how would they do that?
Okay. Well, my book is out of reach, but I would first have them go to the Black Business Directory, page 39.
That's good.
And we're on all the social media platforms. Well, not all of them, but we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Website is www.greatcelebrations.net. You can simply Google us. We come up pretty high in the rankings at this point. Great Celebrations Ceremony Specialist. So you want to put ceremony specialist in there, Great Celebrations Ceremony Specialist. And our telephone number is 717-730-0493.
Good. Now, I want you to repeat that. And then after you repeat that, then I want you to leave us to what you think is important, because time has gone fast. At first I was like, man, we're gonna be on for 50 minutes. What we gonna talk about? And we almost there. So okay, so first of all, you said they can definitely do the Black Business Directory, page 39.
Mhm.
They can go on social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn. And you also said your phone number is 717-730-0432, or they can simply Google Greater Celebrations Ceremony Specialist, correct?
That's it.
We brought
Yes.
it up online here so they can kind of see it.
Yes. I appreciate that.
They can see that. What would you leave in terms of what you want to say to my audience before we close?
Yeah. Well, I think that, and I know that what you want to do is send a message of hope and inspiration to your listening audience, and I applaud you for that. I feel the same way. And for me, it's all about growth. It's all about maintaining curiosity and being willing to step outside of your own comfort zone. I mean, I stepped outside of my comfort zone tonight because I wasn't exactly sure where we were going to go. But I think that's the key, just no matter your age, whether you're young or whether you're mature like I am, keep growing. If you're young, don't wait for the experience, grab onto somebody and say, I want to be you. Can you help me? And if you're mature, don't let people turn you around. Keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward.
Well, I want to say to you, it's been a pleasure having you on. I want to say to you that I didn't know a lot about it. Hopefully the listening audience learned some things by what you said tonight. But it also gives us a perspective of how to balance things. And that's why I thought it was very unique, because you started out in terms of celebration, whether it was christening a child, whether it was putting two people together in terms of a wedding, whether it was funerals, or whether it was a memorial service. So you have a cadre of bringing people together in many different ways. And I think that we need to understand that, because there are opportunities out there for folks to do what you do if they knew what you did.
Mhm.
Tonight,
I'm sorry, I would like to say also, tonight we spoke about individuals. We talked about couples, but I would want your audience to also know that we can help other businesses, venues, country clubs, banquet facilities, and let's not forget the businesses, corporations that need to meet minority contracting requirements. We're a minority contractor, so I would encourage your audience to keep those opportunities in mind as well.
well, thank you. And as I have always said, if we don't support one another, then stop blaming everybody else. And we got to support each other, because I am a believer, and I will say it again, economic development is key. And if we really want to do things in our community, and if we really want to do things for our young people or other people who have visions, then we need to support them. We need to, we need to rah them, because I'm sure you've heard it. I've heard it. They always pour water, poo down, but you had the vision and the hope and the spirituality to chase your dream. So thank you for chasing your dream. And ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have vision, you have dream, go ahead and do it. Because don't wait 100 years to say I should have, because it'd be too late. So thank you again for coming on my program. I'm surprised that you realized it went so fast, and we'll have you on again.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you very much.
I know.
Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on The Voice 17104. We will be here on The Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions and/or comments.